looks like I'm just going to come up here like alternate teaching. We're going in alphabetical order. You'll never see me again. For the month of October, I decided to go off social media, and someone I know lent me a typewriter. I was going to see like what would happen if I write on a typewriter for a month, and how that would change the way I think and change the way I write. And so I thought maybe it would be a good idea if I share some of this like new typewriter stuff with you, because I can read through the story from here, but you can read the story from here. So I looked through it this morning, and it's crap. It's really bad. I blame it on the typewriter. I want to show you though, in order. This is the whole thing in order, the stack of it. The first day, I'd never used a manual typewriter before. It turns out everything turns into poetry on this typewriter because there are certain keys that don't work. So there are no A's in this document. The space bar doesn't really work.
Life without an A.
There's a lot of. It's a little janky. So, by the third day, I discovered the typewriter needed a new ribbon. And I didn't know how to change the ribbon. By the fourth day, I discovered that you can just scroll the ribbon and you don't need to change it at all. I am gonna share with you a few of the brilliant insights I've discovered on the typewriter. I will use short sentences, mostly without unneeded words and mostly without the letter A. Also, question mark with an asterisk. Question mark isn't working, so I have no choice but to make a lot of declarative statements. I'm starting to understand why Hemingway wrote the way he wrote. Help me, I'm trapped on a deserted island with a broken typewriter. Really though, fountain pens are easier. Oh my God, I'm drunk like a teenage four. Because there's no delete button. And here, I'll jump to the end. On the last day, I got really, serious. Serious with some insights. Like, I hoped that eating protein would be a good substitute for exercise. It wasn't. Running with scissors really is not the danger we make it out to be. And last, but absolutely not least, because the month is young, sometimes I wonder if the real reason we write is just to remind the world we're not dead. Yet. I did lure you here on the promise of reading stories, so I'm going to read one story. It's not the one from the book. It's one that was selected as a finalist for the book. It's a story that I published and then totally forgot about. So I've never read it out loud. I forgot about it, and then they were like, hey, we're thinking of publishing this story. And I was like, what story? And I was like, oh, okay, that story. I remember that now. So it's called The 100th Floor. And it's in my book, Empty Time Machines, available for sale. If you see me out.
How convenient.
In all his days as a window washer, he had never once seen a door on the outside of the 100th floor until that day. They'd started at the roof as always, plunging their platform over the edge and then riding it down little by little. They enjoyed each other's company, but even more they enjoyed the silence and the squeaking sounds as they worked over the glass. They enjoyed their never-ending rhythm, fanning in graceful arcs, fanning and then dunking and then drying, complementing one another, filling in the limits of each other's reach. They almost never looked inside the windows. The people inside were murky shadows like ghosts or underpaintings or characters in an old washed-out silent film. Their shapes distorted when the windows were doused, then wiped dry, doused, then wiped dry. And the men on the scaffold noticed the people inside only sometimes, the way one notices shells on the ocean floor revealed after a passing wave, then hidden, then forgotten. They loosened the ties on the pulleys and lowered themselves and started again, window after window, floor after floor. The sun was an arm's reach away. The wind was cruel. They brought with them their own weather. On cloudy days, their scaffolding would sometimes seem to ascend above the clouds into a sunshine that no one on the ground could see. On sunny days, such as this day, the window washers would sometimes disappear into a small cloud that hovered over their platform, perhaps fashioned from the water they carried and from the heat of their own breath. It was from one such cloud, while their scaffold dangled from a heaven-high roof during an otherwise unremarkable moment, that he saw it. The door, high above him, high and to the right, a glossy red door with a brass knob that reflected the sunlight into his eyes. A heavy wooden door set into the vertical pane of steel and glass, an impossible door. The other men were already unfurling the platform down the building, working their way lower, and he knew if he didn't reach for it, didn't at least try it, then he'd never have a chance again, and he'd never know what was on the other side. So without a word to his colleagues, for they preferred to work in silence, he stepped off the platform, and they never did understand why.